Alright, so welcome back to the channel. Today we've got a very special combo here with us. As you may or may not know, I've been using the SU-8 DAC for a couple of years now, and I've had absolutely no complaints with it thus far. So when APOS asked me to take a look at its indirect successor, as well as its amp counterpart, I couldn't object. Now before we begin, don't forget the usual: like, comment, subscribe, links for all these components in the description down below, yada yada yada. So, let's take a look at what's new here. So let's kick it off with the content section. Included with the DAC here is the Bluetooth antenna, the remote control, a power cord, a USB-B to USB-A cable, and the manual/warranty. Pretty straightforward. As for the amp, you get the amp itself, the remote control, the power cord, the warranty/manual, even more straightforward than the DAC. Now let's discuss the build and I/O of the devices. Once again, we'll start with the DAC here. On the front, you'll see the display and the multi-function knob. This knob actually feels very similar to the one on the M400 DAC that I reviewed a little while ago. So on the back, you've got your AC port, the Bluetooth antenna, a USB Type-B port, a fiber optic port, a coaxial port, left-right XLR outs, and left and right single-ended outs. Pretty robust selection. Now looking at the amp, on the front you get an XLR out, a 1/4" single-ended out, a display, same beautiful display, same size, and a multi-function knob, which feels exactly like the knob on the SU-9. On the rear you get the AC port, the left and right XLR inputs, and the left and right RCA inputs. Surprisingly, no pass-through ports on this device. Strange. Now let's discuss the functions at hand. Again, let's start with the DAC here. It lets you swap inputs between USB, optical, coaxial, and of course, Bluetooth. Now regarding the Bluetooth quality, it's pretty great. While it's absolutely usable, I'd still opt for a wired connection if it's not too much of a hassle. Otherwise, perfectly content with the quality I get in exchange for that convenience factor. As for the latency, it's pretty decent too. It does take it a good 20 to 30 seconds for the audio to catch up to the video, but once it does, it's almost unnoticeable. Look, all I'm saying is, it's not perfect, nor the DAC with the least amount of latency I've ever seen. Now, it's got a variety of filters, including PCM, DSD, and sound color. Feel free to mess around with them, though I really didn't pick up all that much of a difference. Now, for the record, I've been listening to this unit with the PCM mode set to slow linear, and sound color set to rich 1. Pre-mode allows you to toggle between allowing the DAC to modify the volume, or setting it to fixed and controlling it completely through the amp. DPLL allows you to filter out noise coming from the USB source. Since my setup isn't all that bad, and as far as I know, doesn't introduce any sort of noticeable jitter, it didn't really make a difference for me. If anything though, I did notice that it brought the treble a teensy bit forward. Last of all, brightness adjusts to brightness, and reset resets the settings back to factory default. Of course. Now for the amp. Even though this is a higher end amp, the functions are still pretty straightforward. Input allows you to toggle between single-ended and XLR, while gain allows you to toggle between low and high gains of each, respectively. One cool thing to bring up here, whenever adjusting the volume on this amp, it makes a cool clicking sound. By toggling disable in volume mode, it makes every point adjustment make a sound. If you'd rather it only make it every 4 steps, set it to enable instead. But like I just said, it's too cool to limit that. Now as for the sound of the actual unit, it sounds perfectly clean and clear, and I have no issues with it whatsoever. Though I must mention, as a long-time AAA 789 user, it does sound a tad more narrow by comparison. Swapping back and forth between the two, that's just an immediate feeling I get here. So let's conclude here. Should you consider either of these two units as your next DAC or DAC amp for your setup? Well, there are multiple ways to tackle this. Let's start with discussing the standalone units. Well, the S9 is a very robust unit with a variety of options and inputs to choose from. At its current price of $460 US, I wouldn't quite call it a steal, but you must also consider the quality of what you get. The Bluetooth audio function is very formidable, The balanced option is fully balanced, and that screen is absolutely beautiful for what it is. Also, don't forget there's a new version called the SU-9N, which essentially omits the MQA functionality and brings the unit's price down by about $60. Now, the SH9 amp is also very robust, but I'd be lying if I said I loved it. While its screen is very beautiful, and that clicking sound it makes when adjusting the volume is so satisfying, I find the lack of any pass-throughs to be disturbing. I mean, what if I wanted to add a tube amp to this chain? I'd have to purchase something like the shit sys to split the signal between the RCA connections of this amp and the tube amp. So it would go from the SU-9 DAC over to the shit sys, and then from there it can basically split into either the SH9 amplifier or the tube amp. And as I mentioned before, just knowing that there's a similarly priced unit out there that provides a more grandiose soundstage and presentation sort of tips the scales against this unit for me. But now consider this. If you get these two units as a combo from APOS, you're essentially getting an included APOS balanced cable for any headphone you want for $30. I know it's a hard pill to swallow, but if you were planning on diving headfirst into this hobby, you may as well play it smart here. That said, I prefer the start out small and then upgrade over time path, but hey, your mileage may vary. And so that is gonna do it for me. So let me know what you thought about these two units here. Like I said, like, comment, subscribe, etc. And but yeah, thank you very much for watching. I hope this video helped your purchasing decision, and I will see you in the next video. Okay, ciao.